What you're looking at is every streak of at least 30 consecutive games in the history of Major League Baseball. The sizes correspond to the length of the streak. This big one here, that's Joe DiMaggio's legendary 56-game hitting streak from 1941. They're also sorted according to the player's career batting average. Up at the top we can find Ty Cobb, whose MLB record .366 career batting average was made possible by not one, but two hitting streaks of over 35 games 6 years apart. You'll also find, perhaps unsurprisingly, that the mean career average among this group is remarkably high, coming in at an impressive .304. For context, Mike Trout's career batting average comes in at .305 over 11 MLB seasons. This is an elite group, made up of some of the most famous names in baseball history. At least for the most part. Because all the way down at the bottom, possessing a career batting average over 20 points less than the second lowest on the list, sits Dan Uggla. Just how did Dan Uggla, a career .241 hitter, end up with one of the longest hitting streaks in MLB history? Well, I'll tell you. In exactly 45 seconds. Because right now, I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. With baseball on a break, there's no better time than the present to learn a new skill or master old ones. Connect to other like-minded, passionate members in your choice of thousands of inspiring classes for creative, curious people. You can take classes on topics like video editing, photography, or, like me, a class on writing and shooting for YouTube, taught by Marcus Brownlee. In it, you're shown the process of creating a professional quality YouTube video, from scripting to editing, and everything in between. They're also offering a special deal to the first 1,000 subscribers to click the link in the description, who will receive exclusive access to a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. That's a whole month for free, just by clicking the link in the description. Why wait to invest in yourself and your personal growth? Start exploring your creativity with Skillshare today. Dan Uggla was going to have to wait. For how long, he didn't know. But when the Arizona Diamondbacks informed him that he would be left off their 40-man roster in 2005, the 25-year-old knew that his window of opportunity to make it to the bigs was rapidly closing. A University of Memphis grad, Uggla had garnered for himself a reputation as one of the top power bats in his draft class, following a junior year in which he slugged a ridiculous .790. His 18 home runs tied him for second in the conference with Kevin Youkilis, and he was named to several All-American teams, so it came as no surprise when Arizona picked the second baseman in the 11th round of the '01 draft. Fast forward to 2005. Dan Uggla has amassed 64 home runs and a .443 career slugging percentage across 5 seasons in the D-backs farm system, but the organization's refusal to promote him beyond the AA level is not an encouraging sign. What this means, though, is that Uggla is now eligible for the Rule 5 draft, so if another team wants to snatch up the power-hitting infielder, they would be free to do so. Enter the Marlins. Coming off of a season in which they finished 4th in the division and down All-Star second baseman Luis Castillo thanks to an off-season trade, everyone's second-favorite Florida-based MLB team was in the market for a young, affordable replacement. They selected Uggla on December 8, 2005, at which point the career minor leaguer was suddenly thrust into the starting second base job for an MLB team. And he didn't disappoint, holding his own in a lineup which included a 23-year-old Miguel Cabrera and Rookie of the Year Hanley Ramirez. In fact, had it not been for Ramirez and division rival Ryan Zimmerman, Dan Uggla likely would have taken home the Rookie of the Year honors himself in 2006, since his .818 OPS, 27 home runs, and 90 runs batted in was enough for him to grab 3rd place in that year's voting. For the next 4 years, Uggla became one of the most reliable hitters for a Florida team that saw little else in the way of consistency. Between 2006 and 2010, he averaged 32 home runs and 97 RBI a year, and appeared in 2 All-Star games, while sporting an OPS plus of 117 over that stretch. He also set some records, becoming the first second baseman in MLB history to hit 30 or more home runs in 4 seasons. He also struck out over 750 times during this same period, and his average of .263, though not terrible, tied him for 3rd worst among all second basemen. But that wasn't a problem for the Marlins, at least not yet, thanks to the fact that Uggla appeared in more games over this time than any other second baseman in Major League Baseball, an average of 155 per season. So while he wasn't exactly Albert Pujols at the plate, Dan Uggla could certainly be counted on to provide one of the most reliable power bats in the game. This turned out to be exactly what the Braves were looking for in the winter of 2011, when they obtained Uggla from the Marlins in exchange for infielder Omar Infante and reliever Michael Dunn. It was announced shortly after that Atlanta would be extending the All-Star's contract, signing him for $62 million over the next 5 years. It was a deal that made Dan Uggla the highest paid second baseman in MLB history in terms of average annual value, and as his salary shot up, so did fans' expectations. Now, I just want to make it clear that I know that batting average isn't a comprehensive stat, and that looking at average alone doesn't tell the whole story of a hitter. A hitter doesn't need a high average to be great, and a hitter isn't necessarily great because of a high average. But regardless of where you stand on the stat, I'd say that most people can agree that a 173 batting average through the first half of the season is not very good. Unfortunately for Dan Uggla, this was exactly where he found himself on the morning of July 5th, 2011, when he made his way to Turner Field with only 55 hits to his name over 86 games. It was the lowest average in the National League among qualified batters, by a lot. That night's matchup was against the visiting Colorado Rockies, who sent out the 8-5 Yoelis Chacin as their starter. All in all, the game wouldn't really be worth remembering. The Braves took an early 4-0 lead and went on to win 5-3. That is, if it weren't for Uggla, whose perfect day at the plate included a solo home run in the 6th, a double to deep right center in the 8th, and 2 walks. It bumped his average up by 5 points, his slugging by 17, and his OPS by almost 30. He was far from back, but it was a pretty good day for a player who hadn't been having too many of those lately. The question was, could he repeat it? He answered the next day with a nearly identical stat line, 2 for 3 with a home run, 2 runs scored, 2 RBI, and a walk. His average gained another 5 points, while his OPS broke the 600 mark for the first time since May. Braves fans, who had been on the verge of writing off their $60 million man as a bust, began to wonder if this 2-game stretch was a signal that Dan Uggla was breaking out of his season-long slump. Then, the impossible happened. It started slow, with a single here and a double there, but surely enough, Dan Uggla would record at least 1 hit in every one of his next 31 games. It was the longest hitting streak in the majors in 5 years, but it very well may have been the strangest one of all, statistically speaking at the very least. Let's break it down. The previous Atlanta record had been held by Rico Cardi, who hit in 31 straight in 1970. The franchise record, however, still belongs to Tommy Holmes, who hit in 37 straight for the Boston Braves in 1945. It was the 19th longest hitting streak in MLB history, and just the 16th to reach 31 games since DiMaggio's record in 1941. The highlight of this stretch undoubtedly came on July 22nd. It was a planned day off for Uggla, whose streak stood at 12 games after a 1-for-4 performance against Colorado the day before. But when the Braves found themselves tied at 4 with Cincinnati in the top of the 9th, there was going to have to be a change in plans. With the go-ahead run on second, manager Freddie Gonzalez sent in his hottest hitter in the hopes of a last-minute rally. Now, in Gonzalez's defense, a 12-game hitting streak, while nothing to scoff at, isn't really worth sacrificing a whole game for. Nevertheless, as fans watched the count climb to 3-2, they couldn't help but wonder if this was really how the streak was going to end. Fortunately for everyone not named Nick Massett, Dan Uggla proved his manager right, crushing a 402-foot home run to right center to put Atlanta ahead for good. It was his first career pinch-hit home run, and single-handedly increased the Braves' chances of winning by 45%. But this is just the surface-level stuff. I want to take a minute to really dig into just what made Dan Uggla's hitting streak so dang weird. Before this run, Uggla had played in 86 games on the season. In addition to the 173 batting average mentioned before, he also had 12 home runs and 29 RBI. During the 33-game streak, however, he hit 15 home runs and 32 RBI, surpassing his entire season's worth of production up to that point in less than half the games. Whereas before, his OPS was among the lowest in the league, it more than doubled during the stretch, from 568 to 1200. His slugging saw an even more drastic uptick, from 327 before to over 760 during. But I haven't even talked about the main oddity that makes this hitting streak stand out among the others, at least to me. Because beginning on July 5th, Dan Uggla's season batting average would not decrease for 27 straight games. That's something that had never happened before in the history of Major League Baseball, nor has it happened since. Because, as it turns out, such an achievement was a statistical anomaly in and of itself. Think of it this way. For a batter to increase their season average, they have to finish the day with an in-game batting average higher than their season batting average entering the game. In other words, if a batter goes 1 for 4, their batting average for that particular game is 250. If the batter's season average was below 250 before the game, it will go up as a result of this performance. But if it was above 250 going in, a 1-for-4 game will cause it to go down. This may seem like a fairly intuitive concept, but it's an important part of this story. Because when Dan Uggla went 27 games without lowering his average, it wasn't in spite of his poor performance up to that point, but because of it. Had Uggla entered this stretch with a season average above, say, 200, his 1-for-5 showing on July 9th would have brought it down. If he was hitting over 250, his average would have dropped after going 1-for-4 on July 7th. But because Dan Uggla's season batting average of 173 was so remarkably bad, so dismally poor, it opened up an opportunity for him to do something no one else had ever done. As for what to credit for his sudden change in fortune, Uggla, for one, had little in the way of specifics, continually chalking up his newfound consistency to an increase in confidence. But when we really dig into the numbers, we can find a less cliché, if not less common, explanation. Batting average on balls in play is the measure of a player's average on batted balls that are not home runs. This is a statistic that can fluctuate wildly over time for a player, and while sometimes a change in batting average on balls in play can reflect an adjustment in exit velocity or launch angle, one's BABIP is almost always determined primarily by pure, dumb luck. Entering 2011, Dan Uggla's career batting average on balls in play was .302, perfectly in line with his ability and performance up to that point. But by the time the middle of the season came around, that number had dropped to an abysmal 187. So while there are bad seasons, what Uggla was experiencing through the first half of 2011 was the unluckiest for a qualified batter in all of Major League Baseball by a wide margin. But beginning on July 5th, for reasons unknown to anyone but the gods, baseball or otherwise, his luck did a complete 180. For the duration of his streak, Uggla's BABIP jumped to an impressive 382, almost an entire 200 points higher than before. In the span of 1 month, Dan Uggla had gone from the unluckiest hitter in the league to among the most fortunate. Atlanta, who had won 19 out of the 33 games of the streak, finished second in the NL East to the 102-win Phillies. While 2012 would see him selected for his third career All-Star team, it would also be the last good season of Dan Uggla's career. Although his batting average had once again seemed to have settled in the low 200s, his league-leading 94 walks put his on-base percentage at .348, the third highest among all second basemen. 2013, however, would prove to be nothing short of a disaster for Uggla. With only 80 hits and 440 at-bats, he finished off the season with a batting average of .179. It was the lowest in Major League Baseball by almost 30 points, and tied Rob Deere for the lowest season batting average for a player qualified for the batting title. To add insult to injury, the Braves announced on October 1st that they would be leaving Uggla off the 25-man roster for the playoffs. It was a low bar to clear, but Dan Uggla's 2014 season started off better than the previous one. Soon enough, however, Atlanta began to look for other options at second, eventually giving the starting job to Tommy La Stella in late May. On July 18, 2014, the Atlanta Braves released Dan Uggla. He had hit to the tune of a 162 batting average and an OPS of 472 over 130 at-bats. As for the Braves, they were still on the hook for $19 million through the end of the next season. Uggla signed a minor league deal with the Giants on July 21st, but was released only 10 days later after going 0 for 11 with 2 errors over 4 games. In an ironic twist of fate, however, this 4-game tenure in San Francisco was enough to earn Uggla his first and only career World Series ring, as the 2014 Giants had gone on to beat the Royals in the Fall Classic. Dan Uggla hit only 2 home runs for the Nationals in 2015, and, to his credit, he did not waste them. The first came on April 28th, when he played a key role in a come-from-behind victory against who else but the Atlanta Braves. Already with a 2-run triple on the day, Uggla slammed a 3-run home run off of closer Jason Grilli to secure a 13-12 win for the Nats. Washington had come back from 2 8-run deficits over the course of the game, setting a franchise record. As for Dan Uggla, his .702 win probability added for the game was by far the highest of his career, as well as the highest that season for any National, or any Brave for that matter. Meanwhile, his 3-for-5 performance was enough to pull his season batting average back up to 190. The second home run came in the second-to-last game of the season as part of a matchup against the New York Mets. Now, by this point in the 2015 campaign, the NL East had been all but wrapped up. the Mets were on their way to a division series meeting with the Dodgers, while the second-place Nationals were 14 games back of the second wildcard spot. In other words, what better time for Dan Uggla to crush a 379-foot home run to left field in the 7th inning, securing the lead for Washington and bringing his 2015 season to a thrilling, if ignominious, conclusion. It was also the last MLB at-bat he would ever take. He would go unsigned the following offseason, and although he probably won't be remembered as one of the most outstanding players of his time, he left the game in possession of several records, some good, some bad, some intact, and some not. His 154 career home runs in Miami would be the most by a Marlin until the mark was passed by Giancarlo Stanton in 2015. In a similar manner, his record for the lowest season batting average lasted until 2018, when it would be broken by Chris Davis, though I'm sure Uggla wasn't too upset to lose that one. Even his final career home run, the capstone on a decade of MLB experience, would be overshadowed, because as Dan Uggla crossed home plate one last time, he was doing so as part of Max Scherzer's second career no-hitter. So when the Nationals stormed the field following the last out, it was to celebrate Scherzer's accomplishment. Dan Uggla would once again have to wait. But for what? This time, the answer wasn't so clear. But whatever's next for Dan Uggla, one thing is sure. His story, with its ups and downs, its highs and lows, is a lesson in extremes. We can learn that past consistency, like the kind Uggla displayed up until 2011, does not mean any of us are guaranteed future results. Nothing is certain, after all. But what that also means is that even the most unfortunate among us can experience a change of luck in an instant. And sometimes, all it takes is patience. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you're looking for more videos like this, check out Stark Raving Sports, where I just released the second episode of my series, Bygone Baseball. This latest one's about the House of David, baseball's bearded answer to the Harlem Globetrotters. As always, remember to like this video and subscribe, and once again visit Skillshare using the link in the description if you want to continue to support the channel. But that's all I have for today, and I'll catch you all in the next video.